Grandeur and Misery of Man, Apostolic Letter of Pope Francis on Blaise Pascal following. Pascal, Controversy and Charity. Before concluding, I must mention Pascal's relationship to Jansenism. One of his sisters, Jacqueline, had entered religious life in Port-Royal in a religious congregation, the theology of which was greatly influenced by Cornelius Jansen, whose treatise Augustinus appeared in 1640. In January 1655, following his night of fire, Pascal made a retreat at the Abbey of Port-Royal. In the month that followed, an important and lengthy dispute about the Augustinus arose between Jesuits and Jansenists at the Sorbonne, the University of Paris. The controversy dealt chiefly with the question of God's grace and the relationship between grace and human nature, specifically our free will. Pascal, while not a member of the congregation of Port-Royal, nor given to taking sides, as he wrote, "I am alone, I am not at all part of Port-Royal," was charged by the Jansenists to defend them, given his outstanding rhetorical skill. He did so in 1566 and 1657, publishing a series of 18 writings known as the Provincial Letters. Although several propositions considered Jansenist were indeed contrary to the faith, a fact that Pascal himself acknowledged, he maintained that those propositions were not present in the Augustinus or held by those associated with Port-Royal. Even so, some of his own statements, such as those on predestination, drawn from the later theology of Augustine and formulated more severely by Jansen, do not ring true. We should realize, however, that just as St. Augustine sought in the 5th century to combat the Pelagians, who claimed that man can, by his own powers and without God's grace, do good and be saved, so Pascal, for his part, sincerely believed that he was battling an implicit Pelagianism or semi-Pelagianism in the teachings of the Molinist Jesuits, named after the theologian Luis de Molina, who had died in 1600. But that's still quite influential in the middle of the 17th century. Let us credit Pascal with the candor and sincerity of his intentions. This letter is no place to reopen the question. Even so, what Pascal rightly warned against remains a source of concern for our own age. A neo-Pelagianism that would make everything depend on human effort, channeled by ecclesial rules and structures, and can be recognized by the fact that it intoxicates us with the presumption of a salvation earned through our own efforts. It should also be pointed out that Pascal's final position on grace, and in particular the fact that God desires everyone to be saved and to come to the knowledge of the truth, 1 Timothy chapter 2, verse 4, was set out in perfectly Catholic terms at the end of his life. As I noted earlier, Blaise Pascal, at the conclusion of a life that was brief, yet extraordinarily rich and fruitful, set the love of his brothers and sisters above all else. He felt and knew that he was a member of one body, for, quote, God having made the heaven and the earth, which are not conscious of the happiness of their existence, wished to create beings who would know that happiness and constitute a body of thinking members. End of quote. Pascal, as a lay Christian, savored the joy of the gospel with which the Spirit wishes to heal and make fruitful, quote, every aspect of humanity and to bring all men and women together at table in God's kingdom, end of quote. When in 1659 he composed his magnificent prayer to ask of God the proper use of sickness, Pascal was a man at peace, no longer engaged in controversies or even apologetics. Gravely ill, and at the point of dying, he asked to receive Holy Communion, but that was not immediately possible. So he asked his sister, quote, since I can communicate in the head, Jesus Christ, I would like to communicate in the members. He greatly desired to die in the company of the poor. It was said of Pascal shortly after he took his last breath on August the 19th, 1662, that he died with the simplicity of a child. After receiving the sacraments, his last words were, "May God never abandon me." May the brilliant work of Blaise Pascal and the example of his life, so profoundly immersed in Jesus Christ, help us to persevere to the end on the path of truth, conversion, and charity. For this life passes away in a moment, everlasting joy in return for a single day's effort on earth. From Rome, St. John Lateran, June the 19th, 2033, Pope Francis.